Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here, 8:31 a.m. EST. And we just had some data come out, and I'm looking at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ seems to be possibly taking a break here. Whatever went on when the central bank heads spoke, the NASDAQ did take a pretty interesting move down here. It fell, that was yesterday, and it fell over the space of about an hour and a half. And yeah, it was down a good 1% an hour and a half. Now that's a big deal in such a short time. Open to close, it was less than that. Open to close, it was really 0.5%, which is still notable, but it hasn't recovered, and it continues to kind of start to push down, right? So now, this is not a good look. This look right here, in fact, that really is a head and shoulders. Now it's on the 30-minute chart, or it would translate over to the 3-hour chart too. So if we were to just go ahead and look at this, and you got to remember, it's the NASDAQ. So if the powers that be want it to continue up, it will, regardless of any kind of patterns. But if it were left to its own devices, we could easily see a downward movement here. And if I were to get rid of some of the old targets, these 2 yellow lines are targets that I called out and that we met there, as far as there was a long trade idea that went down. But according to the way that the head and shoulders usually plays out, you're probably looking at about, really, it's 22,380, but you probably won't go below 22,430. So I'll repeat that. The actual target, the long target on that, I mean, the greater distance target, 22,384, and then you have 22,500 for kind of an initial move down, and it's at 22,650. I mean, those are numbers that are on the 30-minute chart. They're not that hard of a pullback, but I want to take a look at the algos here. I can tell you that at least on the daily, there does stand to be a significant pullback, and everything is up against resistance. Now, the high time frame is still bullish, right? So I'm going to go to the 3-hour, look at the swing trading time frames. So even if price were to head down and maybe touch the prior all-time high, which would make an awful lot of sense, right? Our target, like I said, for the head and shoulders was down at 22,380, but the prior all-time high was 22,400. So price could go ahead and just make its way and bounce off of that instead of going to the target. At the current trajectory, it could go way slower than this, but it may do this by next week, possibly, if not sooner. And then what'll happen after that, we'll just have to see, because the high time frame is still pretty bullish, right? But I do think this is very possible. Now, remember, this is all subject to the powers that be allowing this to happen. And now quarter 2 is over. Quarter 3 just started. And that's important information right there. You got to understand the quarter 2, quarter 3 situation means that, hey, you know what? The numbers are set. When quarter 2 ends and all these, markets were snapshotted at the end of that, which was Monday afternoon at market close, I believe. Whatever happens after that is not quite as important. And numbers tend to be, I don't want to say manufactured, but manufactured, towards the end of important dates. For example, the prior week, 2 weeks ago's options expiration close. The price action was very suspicious that day. It wasn't very natural. Well, they probably needed their positions not to be underwater, so they pushed price where they need to push it before the market close, and that's where you get what you get. And the same thing probably was the case on Monday afternoon. So we have another few days left in the week until market close. We'll see how that goes. As it stands right now, I do expect price to shimmy down. That's what I expect in NASDAQ. Now, will it go down below the prior all-time high, which is at 22,418? That remains to be seen. And I think we might even see a short-term bounce on that. So, for those who might be swing trading, I'm not giving any advice here, but I might be looking at a possible trade like this, depending on how the market structure looks. Something along these lines. Nice little 2-to-1 maybe. We'll see what kind of stop loss material I'm given here. Based on the market structure. And then once we get down to that area, I might also look at a possible bounce on a lower time frame, most likely, but something along these lines where price may come back to grab liquidity topside. So a couple of trades possible coming, but again, that's all going to be contingent on the algos being okay with it. V the Gorilla, how are you, sir?
I am here, my friend.
Good, good. It's good to have you on. Let me get the screen
Pleasure.
right. So what's going on with you today? We got any interesting stuff going on? Anything fun to talk about publicly, or do we not have anything interesting to talk about? Or we're just gonna sit here and discuss our makeup tutorial video that we're
Makeup tutorials seem to be the move in terms of what's happening with the markets in the summertime. You know,
Okay.
we see what's happening in BTC, right? I mean, you've seen a little pullback here.
Yeah, we got a little pullback.
What do you think, man? I'm thinking if there's going to be a dip, there could be a very short-lived dip, and it's going to go right back to being range locked. What's your take?
Sure. Well, I did call briefly just last week a move up to 108, and then I had some questions in the private chat, and I called that out in the private chat. And they asked, well, is it going to go to 110? I'm like, yeah, see how it behaves at 108, and it pulled back. So that's on the 3-hour.
3-8 in effect, baby.
Yeah. We don't want to release too many of our secrets, though. So look, Bitcoin is up against resistance. It's bullish on the high time frame. Right now, though, it's up against resistance on a lot of time frames, and it is slowing down. Now, it doesn't mean that it won't go up, right? And I know that we on the Rogue Show we were talking about Bitcoin in a way. I got some private messages like, "Hey, man, you guys don't like Bitcoin anymore?" Like, I don't know if you remember if you were talking about how less adoption of Bitcoin. Look, there's a difference between expecting the price to go up in the future and not treating it like it's the Messiah's manna. You get it? Like, so there's a lot of people who think Bitcoin is just the revolution and it's that and that and the other. And okay, I'm not in that category at this point. I think Bitcoin's outmoded tech. But will the price continue to go up over time? That's a different story, right? Will Bitcoin continue to be used for the financial games that are played? Will the big money continue to buy it as it's useful to them? And I think the answer is yes to that. The question is how long is that going to be the case? How long will it be until something better comes along and they, go ahead and dump Bitcoin for that, if they ever do? I mean, Bitcoin could be, they can upgrade Bitcoin. It just hasn't been allowed. Now, to look at the price action, like I said, it's bullish high time frame, but we are at an important juncture. So let me go to the weekly chart here. What I'm concerned about is, let me delete this. All right, so this is a weekly chart. We had an all-time high. We had a move down. We had another all-time high, all within, a half a year, December to June. With that being the case, I'm not saying the bull market is over, but I'm concerned, it certainly is possible that it's over. I mean, technically this is a double top. So, there is that. Right now, price does seem to be knocking its head on the ceiling. So there's a couple ways this could go. I think if we do see a move up, I don't think it's going to happen until after August. But it could happen sooner. Let me mark out August here. So let's just do the end of August is roughly right there. So I think we might just see kind of a range lock, right? So basically price may rotate between, I don't know, 90 and 100, something like that. This is 98 right here. So, I mean, it could even just rotate between 98 and 100, or it could rotate in this tight range until then, or maybe not even until then. It could create a much larger range and rotate for longer. And we're at a point where it really could do anything. I assure you the high time frame is bullish, but it's almost always bullish for Bitcoin. And by the time it flips bearish, it's already too late and you're already down in the bear cycle. So let me take a brief look at the weekly. I think we have a little time yet. There's a particular sign I look for on the weekly before it's like, okay, price is probably going to rotate down for a minute. So I do have my eye on that sign. It hasn't happened yet. And as soon as that does happen, I will notify Algo Factory. We'll go from there. So for right now, if I were just to like, hey, gun to your head, what's going to happen to Bitcoin right now? You gotta just make a choice. Like, cause I don't like to do that. It's like I when new information comes in, I make my decisions based on that. But let's just say I was not going to be allowed new information and I just had to take a guess. I would say something like this. Now, once it heads down to say either, maybe low hundreds or high 90s, maybe to test that bottom right here, I think that's, what we're going to see what it's made of right then. And then it may do some more rotation. It might kind of go back and forth until then. But right now, I'm not expecting a break of all-time highs. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It can happen. But until August right now, I'd hang back a little bit. So it's Bitcoin. It's unpredictable. What do you think, V?
What do you have it going down to?
I mean, I don't really have a
Yeah.
specific number. I'm just at this point, I'm just watching, man. I could tell you where the supports are, where the structure is.
Yeah.
Multiple rejections upside around 103.
Yeah, I was gonna say 104.
Yeah, that's
That range, 103 to 104 is where it dives down to, then it bumps back up. I think this thing is staying range locked. If there's going to be a dip, it's going to be a dip once. I don't think we're not going to see anything until probably the full. It's not an interesting crypto to me anymore. I don't care about it. Using it on the institutional side of things is just like, it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
She'll be back. Another Quello, she's gonna love me again.
That's pretty good.
Oh boy. All right. Well, that was Bitcoin and NASDAQ in depth.
Let's talk about Solana.
Solana. We'll take a look at Solana.
Solana.
If Bitcoin calms down, Solana should take off. Look at that. Well, I guess I called that one pretty well. At least what I've noticed is I'm calling these really well, but it moves faster than my predictions.
Sure.
My predictions are like correct, but kind of slow. But remember, the predictions are only just for like a general idea. When I do these predictions on like a higher time frame, it's just like it's kind of do this. It's not supposed to exactly follow the path.
Right.
But this higher path, it really did pretty much follow. As to right now, Solana algo wise, that's the daily. Look, it's at a point where it could bounce. There is reason for it to bounce. And if it doesn't bounce in the next, I'd say 4 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, it better bounce in the next 4 to 8 weeks, or I'm going to think it's done. It's it has every reason to bounce, even in the next 1 or 2 weeks. But I would expect a pretty substantial bounce. And if it did that, I would want it to test 188 first, and then say 200. So 180 and 200. But if price dips below 100 and 110, we'll say, in the current environment, if the price dips below 110 and stays below 110 for 2 weeks, I would be a little bit concerned, because it has every reason to continue up. And if Bitcoin, after all times highs, starts to range, and it ranges for weeks and weeks and weeks, and Solana doesn't pump up, then that's an indication that the market probably thinks that the bull is over. So Solana, I think, is going to be the canary in the coal mine. Because as far as I know, and I know there's a lot, everybody's kind of, in their, in whatever coin that they worship, but Solana seems to have the broadest appeal outside of Bitcoin. And Ethereum, I'll leave like as an exception, because you have a lot of old heads holding on to that dream, which I personally don't. And I'm going to be polite about that. But the other, and Ripple, that's another story. Ripple doesn't really move in the same way as other cryptos do. Ripple and Monero, blah, blah, blah. But outside of those kind of old head ones, Solana is, in my opinion, has the broadest appeal. And if that doesn't move while Bitcoin ranges above 100, then that's a concern. That's either a big concern for Solana itself or for the bull as a whole. What do you think about Solana, V?
I think it's one of those things that people need to take a look out for. It's very undervalued, tremendous upside, way better tech. And right now, in terms of price, I kind of see it bouncing around here. But I think come the fall, we're going to start seeing some moves on it. So keep it locked and reloaded. Some old coin has to break away from Bitcoin is high, therefore I am high. Bitcoin is low, therefore I am low. That pattern has to end. The coin that stands best for that is Solana, okay? And then there's other coins as well that I'm not going to mention here.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll talk about that next in the live lab. Speaking of which, View the Gorilla, sir, can you please get us over to the private live lab so we can talk about those coins?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening in. Follow us over to the live lab where we discuss everything you need to know in order to be successful.
Wait, hold up. They can't follow us to the live lab because they're not members.
Yes. You have to join us, guys. You have to join us. Join us. Become members, and then you get all the goody, all the great information that's going to make you a far better trader. And then if you were to go at it alone. With that being said, Cowboy, take it away.
Thank you, sir.
Join us or die.